message here. Just go ahead and say hello. Okay, there we are. We're getting some questions in. Okay, awesome. Terrific. Hey, Derek, Jose, Craig, Glenn, Kenyon. Just want to welcome you guys. Let's see. Some amazing imagery with HDSLR cameras. Okay. All right. So it looks like we have a good mix, but a lot of you are photographers. Some of you do video, and some of you are just branching over. You're sort of doing like a hybrid as part of your offerings. We got Ronaldo. He's a 5D Mark II exclusive user. Tim works on weddings, so yeah, offering both services is an excellent way to diversify and to offer both products to clients. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started here. Can everybody see my screen okay? It should say how to color correct in Final Cut 10. If you can see that, just go ahead and give me a yes there in the questions. Give me a yes if you can see my screen right now. Okay, excellent. Tons of yeses. And it looks like the room is filled up even more. We actually have 63 people here, so that's excellent. All right, well, you're going to learn how to color correct. We're going to be using Final Cut 10 as our host application. You may or may not be familiar with Color Finale, which is a plugin. This adds professional tools, color correction tools to Final Cut 10. Probably the tool that you're going to be most familiar with if you come from a photography background is RGB curves. With Color Finale, we add RGB curves into Final Cut 10. And also, for obvious reasons, this is relevant, this particular training, because we, over about a year ago, and I'll share with you more about this in a moment, but over a year ago, X-Rite approached us about incorporating the ColorChecker for video into Final Cut via Color Finale and using that. So I'll show you how to do that and how you can become good at color correcting in Final Cut 10 without actually having to be an expert. Okay, so if we can make life easier, that's so much better way of doing things because we're so busy and it's so difficult to try to acquire and learn new things, and so we've really made that a lot easier. Just in case you don't already know who I am, my name is Denver Riddle. But just a little bit more about me. I'm known as the founder of the most popular online resource for color grading. This is basically doing color correction for video. Namely, this is colorgradingcentral.com. I'm the creator, actually, of the original Instagram video filter. So if you're on Instagram, you have the app, chances are you've already been able to use one of my creations if you've gone in and used any of the video filters. And then, of course, I already mentioned I'm one of the co-creators of Color Finale. It's the most popular color correction plugin for Final Cut 10. And in the past, for the past 8 years, I've been doing color grading professionally, and in the last 5, I've been involved with color grading instruction. I started Color Grading Central because there wasn't a lot of resources out there for learning this skill. So here's what you're going to learn during this webinar. You're going to learn a step-by-step grading strategy, the same one that top colorists use. And this is going to make a huge, tremendous difference in your workflow and how you do things and get things done. I'm going to give you that big picture. Besides just showing you how the ColorChecker chart works in Color Finale, I'm also going to give you that big picture. And I'm going to teach you the 2 ways to use the X-Rite ColorChecker for video to perform color corrections inside Final Cut 10. I'm going to show you the quick, easy way, and I'm going to show you the more technical, more manual, accurate way to do that, so that you'll have both. So why is this important to you now? Technology and workflows have changed so much, and they've improved so much over the years, and what this has done is this has greatly sped up our workflows. You don't have to, like I said, become a master colorist to get great looking results. So who is this training for? Well, if you're a filmmaker or if you're a photographer and you want to improve your filmmaking, this is for you. If you're frustrated, color correction can be a challenge. It's a totally different um, space for you. The tools are different. This is for you. And if you just want it to be easy, if you just want to be color correction to be a breeze, so that you can move on, this is for you. So just a couple of house rules. I'm going to be demonstrating how to use the color checker with Color Finale, but as amazing of a tool as it is, and workflow, it's not going to solve all of your problems. So it's not completely idiot proof. It does require some skill in order to get the results that you're looking for. So just a confession, I do have an advantage over most. I've been doing this for years. I obviously ended up pursuing a career as a colorist, so I do have an advantage over most. However, in this training, I'm going to show you how you as a filmmaker or a photographer can get great looking results inside of Final Cut 10, because this really isn't rocket science when you really understand the proper workflow and the techniques that I'm going to show you. So even if you're just a beginner and you're just starting out, you'll be able to bypass many of the difficulties of getting good at color grading and get results much sooner with the solutions with Color Finale and X-Rite. Okay, so that sounds good. Go ahead and give me a yes. You guys are still tuned in the chat box. Go ahead and give me a, okay, I already asked you that. Go ahead and just give me like an amen. Can I get an amen? Just want to make sure you're all here and in good, lively bunch. Awesome. Some of those are amen with exclamation marks. Excellent. Okay. If you've ever felt challenged, opening up a program like Final Cut or looking at, these different, color tools that they have for video, like the color wheels that say lift, gamut, and gain on them, if that's, or, you go out on a set, you're doing some kind of shoot, and you come back and maybe the white balance was off on your camera. Maybe it's a multiple camera shoot where you're using multiple cameras, either for video or for photography, and you're just like trying to figure out how to make all these, your images or the video match. If that sounds familiar, I know how you feel. I mean, I used to feel the same way. So let me just share with you a quick story. Back when I was in my corporate days, and by the way, that's actually not me. I'm not that handsome in real life, and I can't grow a nice beard like that. It just doesn't work for me. But I worked as a director of photography, meaning I did the camera work, and it was a real challenge to be on different sets under different lighting conditions and different setups, and then to then bring that project into post, and then try to figure out what to do with this thing, how to color correct it, especially when it was really off. Initially, like I wasn't an expert. I wasn't very good at it, and it took. I mean, it was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I did read some books. I did take some formal training, and I learned how to read like the scopes. I watched tutorials online, yada yada yada. But I thought surely there has to be a better way to ensure that the results are accurate. And then something happened. I was perusing through some filmmaking tools, and it was always fun, working at the company to be able to, get a budget and buy some new tools. But I was perusing through some filmmaking tools one day, and I discovered this clapper that had like these color bars on it. And though it didn't seem very scientific, what I was excited about was that, there was some kind of, obvious reference on this clapper that I thought, well, surely, this is going to make it in the beginning of every shot, as we do the clapper to sync the sound and write shot notes to stay organized in the edit. And so I thought maybe we could actually use that as a reference in post, because obviously we have the white and the gray bar and the black bar, and then of course some other color bars. And so this actually sort of helped. Well, as time went on, as it wasn't a perfect solution, but it was just what we had at the time. As time went on, and as my career expanded, and as I said, I became a colorist. I was able to actually leave the corporate world, and just for the sake of my journey, this is my first color suite. Technology. It was technology and the tools that really allowed me to do this. And coming back to that clapper, a few years later, X-Rite, of course, already had the ColorChecker photo chart out. This is a chart you may be familiar with. And then I don't remember exactly which version it was, but DaVinci Resolve, if you're familiar with DaVinci, it's a color grading software that used to be used on big, Hollywood features, and actually still used, and you can even download it for free. But they offered this color match feature, where what it would do is, if you incorporated this chart as part of your workflow, if you got it in your shots, it could actually perform an auto color correction using those targets. And this was like really cool. So finally, it was like all of a sudden, now there was a scientific way of doing color correction, besides just having, some colors on like a clapper that you could use as a reference. Here was actually something where software was solving the problem of getting a good base color correction. So this was like something that was really exciting. And so, and as I mentioned, about a year ago, X-Rite approached us and said, we're coming out with a new chart. It's a chart specifically for video with video color targets. We'd love to be able for users to be able to use this inside of Final Cut, and obviously we had the technology and the experience with it, that we were actually able to successfully integrate this color match feature into Color Finale. So it made it really exciting that inside of Final Cut 10, you could use this chart as part of your workflow and get some really good results with it. All right. So what I want to do first, before we get into the actual demo and showing you this, just checking my time, making sure we're good, is I want to lay the foundation. It's important to get the big picture. So besides just learning how to use a certain feature or tool, I actually want to teach you how to color grade and to get those results that even top colorists use. You might have asked yourself, or you might have heard at some point, or wondered at some point, what is the difference between color correction and color grading? They are very similar, but they do have an important distinction. So let's define these. Color correction is fixing problems or normalizing the image so that it's ideal. This is fixing things like exposure and contrast issues. It's fixing white balance or color temperature issues. And really, you're just trying to make it look true to life, the same as when it was shot. So let me just show you an example of this. Here is an original image. This is straight from the camera as actually raw. And it has a logarithmic look to it. And here it is with color correction being applied. And you can see it has nice contrast, and overall it's pleasing. Now, color grading, on the other hand, this is the creative or the artistic aspect of the process, where we introduce or augment colors to support the story. This is where we create a what we call as a look, using different colors and color contrast to evoke different emotions, suggest a time of day, a location, or genre. And this is really the fun part of color grading, where your creativity can run wild. If you're a Photoshop artist, this is where you really start to put that creative spin on it. This is basically what color grading is. So here's that example again, with the color correction already applied, and here it is now with color grading, or look at it on top of it. And you can see it really adds visual appeal to the scene with nice color contrast. I mean, it looks awesome. The skin tones contrast really well with the cool background, causing them to pop or to advance. And this is a great look that you'll see in, say, like an action or like a thriller film. Here it is there again, just compared side by side. You can see it's a huge difference from zero to hero. All right, so let's dig in and discover the same strategy that Hollywood colorists use. The first thing that we want to do is we want to do color correction to fix things. And this forms our base correction. This is where the color chart in Color Finale, if you incorporate it in your workflow, can be really beneficial. The second step is to do shot-to-shot matching to ensure that there's continuity across the scene. Now, when you move over from like a stills world over into the motion world, well, now this is actually something that you have to start worrying about, because if you have a number of clips in a scene and they're all just kind of all over the place and not matching, this is going to present a problem to your viewer because there's no continuity. It doesn't look consistent. So this is why shot matching is important. But this is the thing that we do after we do our base correction. The third step is to then create a look that supports the story. And this is, again, like the creative part. And finally, we then want to apply that look across all the clips in the scene so that we have a uniform look. And think of this actually as really like basically a filter effect, or if you wanted to apply like a Lightroom preset or like an action, what I'm trying to think what they're called. Help me out here in the questions if you can. What they're called in Photoshop. Maybe they're just called action sets. Yeah. So anyways, you apply this, you want to be able to apply this look across all of the clips as sort of a filter effect, and then have the ability to, you know, either dial it back if it's too strong, just the same as adjusting the opacity control. Okay. So let's drill down into each one of these. The way to do color correction is to evaluate the image and identify overall problems or you know, the big problems associated with the picture. Then perform what's called a primary color correction to fix those larger issues that affect the entire image. This is again where the color match feature for the chart comes in, where we can use that. So let me show you an example of this. Here is an underexposed image. I mean, you're all familiar with this. You know, this image in this case is dark. It's difficult to see the talent. But with the primary color correction applied, we can now see things easier in the shot. We're able to bring up the levels. Here's an example of an overexposed shot where the shot is too bright or hot. And here it is with a primary color correction being applied, bringing those levels down. Here's an example, a white balance issue where the color temperature is too warm. Here it is where that's been neutralized. Here's a shot where the white balance is too cool because this is in the shade, and here it is with a primary color correction to warm things up so that it looks accurate. And finally, here's an example of a typical office environment where fluorescent lighting is causing a green color cast, and here it is where we've neutralized the green color cast with a primary color correction. All right, so now that we've taken care of the larger issues with the primary color correction, now we move on to identifying smaller or isolated issues and address those smaller issues with what's called a secondary color correction. So let me show you what I mean with an example, and you'll be familiar with this in Photoshop, and you may be as well in the video space. But here is a lighting issue where clearly the focus is on the gentleman who's underexposed, but if say we were to do a primary color correction, if say we were just to grab the levels and just crank this thing up to brighten the shot, well, you know, we've fixed the problem of the underexposure on the foreground subject, but now the female in the background is overexposed or too bright. So this is a scenario where primary color correction isn't going to work. And obviously you all know the answer to this. If you were faced with this situation in Lightroom or Photoshop, you would know you just need to apply a mask. So it's the same thing in the video space. We actually have the ability to apply a mask, and basically this is an isolated or again a secondary color correction on just the gentleman so that we can fix that, and there's that mask so that you can see that. So we've brightened him without affecting her, blowing her out. Here's another issue with mixed lighting where there's two different lighting sources, daylight mixed with fluorescent, and you can see the fluorescent lighting is making our skin tones look really, really green. If say we were to do a primary color correction, if we were just, you know, if we were just trying to fix the skin tones, but we're just doing this like with the levels of the curves, if we were to perform that primary color correction, it just blows the whole image out of whack. While we were able to fix the skin tones, now our whole scene is looking purple. And so, again, a primary color correction isn't going to work in this case. Instead, what we want to do is to isolate just the skin tone. So if I were doing this in Photoshop, I would use the HSL, the Hue Saturation Luma tool, set it to, I don't know, like the yellows, and then I would fix that. But we can do that isolated or secondary color correction as well. In video, of course, we call it a secondary correction, and we can fix the skin. So just so you can see that again, here's our really green skin tones, and here it is just fixing just the skin. So that forms our base correction, but let me just give you a really important tip, word of advice. I strongly recommend that you avoid the temptation to just launch right into to creating a look and just go right after a look, on your very first shot. What you need to do is you need to put the work in, follow this workflow, color correct all of your shots before just jumping in and starting to create a look. And this is going to make a huge difference in the quality, and in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's really confusing if you launch right into creating a look and then move to the next shot and then try to create a look that matches the first shot. But remember, there's that shot-to-shot matching issue, and so it can just be like a real mess. So follow this workflow. So the second step is to do the shot-to-shot matching. The first thing that we want to do is to pick a hero shot, or a good shot that's a good reference point of the entire scene, and then match the other shots to it. So of course we need to identify which clips have those mismatch issues, and then use our color tools to match those mismatched clips to the hero shot. And we can use scopes. We can use we can jump back and forth and can compare and do that as needed. Let me show an example of this here. This is a scene from a film. Here we have a mismatch situation between this female actress, excuse me, and this male actor, Desmond from Lost. If you ever watched ABC's Lost, you know this is Desmond, Henry Ian Cusick. But anyways, needless to say, these shots don't match. If I go back and forth, you can see her shot is cool, her shot is warm, and so they may more or less be, color corrected, but they still have this mismatch issue, as you can clearly see. So in this particular case, when I was grading this film, I decided this shot of the female should be the hero shot, and so I wanted to match the other shot with Ian to it. And so here it is with that matching being applied. And now if I jump back and forth between these two, you can see we have a nice match. We have nice continuity. Just want to stop for a second, just make sure everyone's still here with me. Let me know if you can see this okay. I see a lot of amens and yeses. Man, nobody came to my rescue when I was trying to figure out what the things were called in Photoshop, the action sets. Excellent. Awesome. We're up to 71 people. That's so cool. So there's some people that are still just joining us, but welcome. My name is Denver Riddle, if you're just tuning in. And we're going through and giving you the big picture of how to do color grading. Whether you're coming from the photo space or you're already in video, there's something for you that you're going to learn today. And then, of course, I'm going to show you how to use the color charts in Final Cut 10 with our tool, Color Finale. Okay, so now we're to the fun part of color grading, and that's creating a look for the shot that helps with the mood in the scene. Of course, we want to have an objective. Okay, we want to just throw or splash something on there. We want to do something that helps with the emotion or the genre of the story. So we want to ask ourselves, do we want to suggest a happy or sad feeling? I mean, these are some just pretty basic questions. But do we want to suggest a time of day, a place, or a time period? And then we want to choose colors and color contrasts that will aid with emotion. It'll evoke those feelings. And then once we've decided on a look that we want to go towards, then what we want to do is then apply, experiment and apply this on our hero shot. Again, coming back to our shot that's a good representation of the scene, this is where we want to begin creating the look. So here's a shot. I'm just going to show you some examples of some different creative looks or color grades. Here's our shot where we did the primary color correction to bump the exposure. And here it is with a creative look that cools down the shot and increases the contrast, and you can see it's a better fit with the mood or the expression on the female's face. Here's an example of a shot. This is kind of something cool and interesting that we can do. This particular scene was supposed to take place at night, but for whatever reason during the production schedule, this was shot during the day. And so here is what's called a day for night look added to it to make this scene appear as though it would, that it took place at night. So I'm just going to jump back and forth, and this is actually all done inside of Final Cut 10 using Color Finale, and you can see, we can really sell that look. Here's our earlier example of the mixed lighting. Watch how we can suggest a different location by adding a warm color grade. We can make these officers look as though this is taking place in LA and we're looking at the Los Angeles Police Department, or we could, cool it down and make it look like this is in New York, where we're looking at the NYPD. And you can see going back and forth between the shots, I mean, we can really suggest a location just based on the color grade. And finally, just to show a different genre or time period, here's an original image, no color correction, just straight out of the camera. Here it is with a primary color correction being applied, and here it is with a creative grade that gives it a nice, soft, warm vintage look that's more reminiscent of an earlier time period. Now for the last step is we want to have some way or some ability to apply that look that we've come up to all the clips in the scene. So what we want to do is add in Final Cut. We want to add. This is kind of a sort of like a hack, but it's pretty well known in the Final Cut community. But we basically add an adjustment layer, and you're already familiar with adjustment layers. But basically, we add an adjustment layer over across all of those clips where we want to add that look, and of course apply that look to the adjustment. We then want to go back through, just verify that the look is still consistent across the scene and make any necessary adjustments. But here's the thing. If you follow this workflow, let's see if I review that. Nope, I don't. If you follow this workflow, you start with doing your base correction, fixing all the problems, fixing all the exposure and white balance issues, then go through and do shot-to-shot matching, ensuring that everything matches and is consistent. Create a look on your hero shot that looks good on the scene, and then apply that look to an adjustment layer over top of all of those clips. If you follow this workflow, I mean, it's going to save you so much time, and the quality is going to be amazing. This is such a powerful workflow. So let me show you just real briefly what that would look like. Here's a shot where I've added that adjustment layer over the top. Let me see if you can see my mouse here. If I move it fast enough, you should be able to see it. So here's that adjustment layer, and now here it is with the look being applied to all these clips. Okay. So with that being said, now we can just jump right in, and I'll show you my screen. We'll jump into Final Cut 10, and we'll do like a live demo. So we're up to 74. That's awesome to have all of you here. I'm just going to briefly check down in the questions. If you have any questions, just go ahead and write them down. If you have a piece of paper and something to write with, or you just want to type it into like Notepad or text editor or whatever, ask that question. Or just make note of that question, and then at the end I'll be able to get to that and try to help you with that. Okay? All right. I'm just going to toggle over here to Final Cut 10, and here we have a shot with the X-Rite ColorChecker for video chart being held in the scene. So the way to use this chart, if you're out shooting video, and of course, it obviously will help and benefit you in photography as well, because there's these targets that you can use. But you want to include this at the beginning of a take, whether it's like documentary. Obviously, if it's like a feature, like a short or a feature-length film. Of course, if you're doing like wedding videography, you could also incorporate this, at least to give you some kind of reference or baseline, because these targets are accurate. X-Rite's done a phenomenal job with creating these charts that are color accurate, and we can now take that color information, apply our color science to it, and we can make stuff match. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like here. Let me just zoom in here on a timeline. Have to wait a second. This is all connected to a RAID array, and sometimes those disks all go to sleep, so what you're seeing is just kind of cached in memory, but we're just waiting for that to spin up. Looking at the beach ball. Has this been helpful so far? If it's been helpful, say yay or nay. Oh yes, says Jose. Annie says yes with an exclamation. Yeah, says Michael Harris. Al, Glenn, Alan, Eric, Chris. Terrific. Okay. All right, so here we have this shot. I'm just going to zoom in just so we can see it better. Hopefully this doesn't crash on me. Generally, this is a really stable release, but believe me, I've done a presentation with Color Finale before, in front of Apple, in fact, and it just like crashed over just a certain feature. But we work really hard at this to make this amazing. So when you launch Color Finale, you drag it onto your clip here in Final Cut. You want to launch the window here to get to the chart features. And then we have this little color gear icon here. And basically, this gear icon is where we have our color management system, and not everything is built out yet, or these features aren't enabled because this is the version 1.5. We are coming out with a pro version, either due out either later this month, at least hopefully by IBC, um, where we're going to enable this. But basically, what we have under the hood here is is color space science, known as ACES. That stands for Academy Color Encoding System. And this was a system that was actually developed by the Academy, as in like the Oscars. And so it's a really powerful color science that we can leverage and use right here inside of Final Cut 10 with Color Finale. But again, that feature is not enabled until the Pro release. But here we'll have a checkbox that says Display Chart Grid, and when you click on it, you're actually not going to see anything. And if I can instill anything on you or leave anything for you to remember, it's just remember this: when you draw this chart, you want to go, just think yellow to green. That's all you need to remember. I'm just going to move that a little bit. Think yellow to green. Also, we need to make sure that this is highlighted, the effect over here in the inspector is highlighted. But now what I should do is I should be able to draw the chart. I'm going to use these corners here as a reference, and I'm just going to click right here. Oh, sometimes that happens. I'm going to click right here. And again, it's yellow to green. So I went yellow to green, and then I just continued drawing all the way around the chart. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing right now is I'm going to show you the first method to use this. And I apologize, I didn't finish how you incorporate this in your workflow. But basically, before you do your shot, your take, you get this in the shot, and then you have it for post. Okay, so even though obviously you're not going to edit your thing together with this shot of your PA, your production assistant, or your assistant holding this chart, but what you can do is you can basically extract the color information, copy it, and then paste it to the same shot later on where you actually use that clip. Okay, so I'm going to show you the first method. This is the easy way. I drew the chart around the grid there, and I'm just going to click this match button, and bada bing, bada bang. It applies an automatic color correction. It fixed the exposure. It fixed the white balance. And here's the thing, and this is where I have to warn you, this is where this is not completely idiot-proof. If you notice, we lost all the information and the detail in the snow, because here's the thing, this algorithm is performing this correction where the chart is. Okay, it's not going to take into account things that are behind it. If the lighting is too bright in the background, it's matching for where the chart is in front of your subject. And again, at the end of the day, I always try to emphasize this, the important thing is your talent. That's the person that you're trying to focus. And so even if we maybe lose a little bit of information or detail, that's not as important as making our talent look good. Okay, so when we add, in the Pro version, you can actually use this in conjunction with this, where you basically choose the camera and the type of monitor that you're connected to, and you'll get much better results. You won't see, hopefully you won't see this as much, but if we wanted to, we could just basically come in here and we could kind of bring levels down if that's like too bright, and it looks like we can extract or get some of that detail back, but we kind of have some posturizing going on. So it is a feature that we are continually improving. So that is the auto way. In most instances, if you light the chart properly, you put the chart in the right place, this is going to work for you, and it's going to solve a lot of problems. So basically, in other words, what we've done is we've essentially done our base correction. Okay, so let me show you the manual method, the slightly more complicated method. Just reset that. The manual method to actually get even better results. It takes a little bit more time, but the results, like I said, speak for themselves. So what I want to do is come over here into the crop. Let me, just before I get too far, let me see if anybody has any questions that I can hopefully try to answer for you. Let me make this window bigger. Okay, I can see your questions now. If you just have a quick question you want to ask me real quickly, I'd like to try to answer that. Somebody asked, I have the Spider Checker 24 chart. we do plan to offer more support for other charts. I have to be honest, it's not at the top of our priority list because there's a lot of other things, other features we're trying to roll out. When we add the next chart, it's going to be the larger version of the ColorChecker for video. This is the compact passport version, but we are going to add support for the larger target chart. Why do I need a dedicated video color checker? Great question. It's very common as opposed to the more the classic photo version, the version I showed you in the slides. Basically, it's this. We can use those color targets in the photo chart to basically make a correction on like the color space or on the colors, but it doesn't. There's just not a sufficient number of grayscale steps or these little chips in order to properly map the tonal range, basically adjust the exposure and the contrast. And so we highly recommend the video chart because it has, let's see how many is here. It has these 12 grayscale steps, and that's enough for us to create a really good tonal range, whereas the photo chart doesn't have, I think it has half as many, and it's just not enough to make a good correction on the exposure. How does Color Finale and Final Cut compare to Resolve? Well, this is simply based on my experience. Obviously, I also teach. We have a program for DaVinci Resolve, learning DaVinci Resolve. But basically, the thing is, if you're comfortable, you love Final Cut, you love that as a platform to do your editorial. Color Finale is a powerful enough tool that you can do all of your color correction and color grading right inside of it without having to do the round trip dance. Round trip dance, what I mean is basically that's sending a project from Final Cut over into DaVinci Resolve, which is a dedicated grading program, and then either finish there or send it back to Final Cut for final finishing and delivery. And of course then you're learning another piece of software. So if you're comfortable in Final Cut, you love to do all your color grading, or your editing and finishing projects in Final Cut, Color Finale is a fantastic tool for doing all that. I used it last summer to color grade a major motion picture, so it is a powerful and a robust enough tool to do that. But then of course there's DaVinci Resolve as well, so it just what it is your personal preference is. What's the right place to put in the chart? You want it near your talent's face, because again, that's the focus, and you want it obviously large enough that like you've seen I've done there. I drew the bounding box around the grid. You want it large enough that you can do that. Another thing, just I guess before I move on, using this auto match feature, again, it's yellow to green. Even if the chart is held the other way, like upside down, it's just always yellow to green, and that'll draw that accurately. The other thing too is you see this little black. Can everybody see this little black swatch right here? This dark patch right here. This is actually a glossy finish, and that's the only way that X-Rite could get like a deep black. And so it's really critical when you're using this chart that depending on how you're holding it and angling it, that there's no type of reflection in that dark swatch. If there's some kind of reflection and you use this auto match feature, the results are going to be really skewed. Okay, all right, great questions, awesome. Cool. All right, so let me show you the manual method. Over here in the inspector, we have this crop section where we can crop down on it. So I'm just gonna, the reason I'm doing this is because over here in the scopes, if you're familiar with reading the scopes, I don't have enough time to really give you a crash course on it, but it's sometimes hard to pick out this chart over here in the scope. So I'm going to show you the really easy and simple way to do that. Basically what I'm doing is I am cropping out everything else so that what I'm seeing as I'm doing this, you'll see that the scopes are updating, and we're only seeing the information. Basically, it's the same. You guys know how to read a histogram. Here's the histogram right here. If you're familiar with that in Photoshop or using a histogram on your camera. But basically now what we have is we have just the chart isolated in the shot. So here we have the RGB parade scope. It's basically the color channels broken out into red, green, and blue. And we can see we have more blue in the shot. I mean, that's, that's apparent looking at it. But how I would fix that is what I would want to do is first, here's the workflow. Fix the exposure first, then fix the color balance. So actually, to do that, I'm actually going to use these three right here. So with the color wheels, the telecine controls, I'm going to use the gain control, which affects mostly the top. And I'm just going to bring that up. I'm just keeping my eye over here in the RGB overlay. Also going to bring up the mid-range. Let me change this to, let's see, what do I want this as? Luma. Is that what I want? All right, fair enough. And then what I want to do is bring the this bottom swatch down close towards the bottom. Let me bring this up in the single view so we can just see the waveform. This is for evaluating exposure. So I'm going to bring that down to about right there. All right, so coming back to the curves, let me just expand this again. And I'm going to use the RGB parade scope for this. I'm going to use the curves too. I'm going to grab the top of the blue curve. I'm going to pull that down to subtract blue. And you can see that updating. When these are straight across, we'll have white. So I'm going to subtract the green as well. Bring the blue back up just a little bit. And when those are straight across, when red, green, and blue mix equally, it turns white. Okay, so let me just reset this just for a minute. Oh, wow, that's definitely not the results that we're going for. You can see we've white balanced for this, but it's kind of thrown everything else off. So I'm just going to try to fix that somehow. All right. Let me do it the method that I'm more familiar with doing. You can use the curves. I just use the curve simply because that's probably what you're more familiar with in Photoshop. All right, let's try it this way. I'm going to balance this with the gain control. Just basically moving this control up, down, left, and right until those balance evenly. All right, let's take a look at that, see how we did. If it's still off, that's okay. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting the results. Okay, so we fixed the exposure, we fixed the white balance. Now here's the more sophisticated part, and we have a great tool for doing this. Every camera represents colors differently. The way a red looks on one camera is going to look different than the red on another camera, how it shows on the computer screen, how it's printed, and so it's really important that we correct for those biases. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Again, I'm just going to crop in on this, and this time I'm just interested in cropping in on the actual colors charts, and you'll really see here in a second why, again, the video chart is better for working with video than the photo chart is. Okay, so coming over here to the vector scope. If you may not be familiar with the vector scope, but basically it's like this. It's picture a color wheel being superimposed over the top of this. We have red right here, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow. And I apologize. I'm sure it's really hard to see on your end. I tried to see if there was a better way I could make this brighter, but basically these top color swatches match with the colors that are on the vector scope. So what I can see from my end is that the green is to cyan. I can see that the yellow is a little bit off, and I'm having a hard time seeing the blue there. Let me come back here and just kind of increase the saturation. Maybe that'll make it a little bit more easier to see. Okay, so the blue has a little bit of a bias, but basically now coming over here to this, this is called our vectors tool. Now again, we have red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Red, green, and blue are the primary colors, and cyan, magenta, and yellow are the secondary colors. So to correct for the red bias, it's a little bit to the right. I'm just going to adjust the hue. And you can see, I can adjust this around the, around the clock, but I'm just going to line it up till it's even with red. The green was really far off. The green was more of a cyan color. So going over here to the green swatch, I'm going to adjust the hue back towards green. Cyan, I'll adjust that a little bit. Yellow looks pretty good. Let's see where blue is. Okay. And then I'm just going to come back and just kind of reduce that saturation. And I'm just kind of doing this by eye till it looks good. So let me turn off the crop. Let's see, that's not what I wanted. And voila, there you go. We've done it the manual method, and we get much more accurate and pleasing results. So let me toggle this on and off so you can see the difference that our color correction made with using those color targets with the ColorChecker chart. So this is without. It's really blue. The white balance is off. It's a little underexposed. And here it is with color correction being applied to the ColorChecker chart. Awesome. So we have 70 people still here. I'm picking up someone's audio mic. Maybe that's Sandra. I'm just hearing another microphone. But we are at 12:49 Eastern, different time depending on your time zone. But does anybody have any questions? Now is the time if you want to ask me a lot of questions. I'd like to take your questions. And then if you'd like to stick around for more, I can show you that color grading workflow. If you're interested, I can show you that workflow to some clips. Let me see right here if you want to see me apply that. Okay. So let me get to your questions. That is a very nice tool. Thank you, Derek. That's awesome. How do I center the dot? Which dot are we talking about? Can you clarify, Tim? There, Magica. Al's going to stay. Is it important to center the dots center when doing it manually? Again, can you please clarify which dot you're referring to? Okay, let's see. Manual really gives one a good idea how to color correct with the chart. Awesome. Glad that was helpful. Newbie question with photos. We're obsessed with sRGB. Let me see if I can see this whole question. We're obsessed with sRGB, Adobe RGB. What is used in video? sRGB. I think Adobe RGB is a larger color space, color gamut, but sRGB is what we use when you're delivering to. It's what we use in video, especially when you're delivering to the web. Okay. It's very similar to another color space, another standard called Rec 709, which is used for HD broadcast and delivering to television. Center point on that chart. Oh, I guess you don't use the center point for anything. I think it's just there as like a reference. Hope that answers your question. How do you create the adjustment layer from the correction and apply it to all the clips? Okay, well, let me see if there's some other questions, and I'll get to that one in just a moment. Well, we have the ability to adjust color only and not exposure. Yes, that you can do with the color wheels. How this works is we have three controls: lift, gamma, gain. Lift controls mostly the darker shadow areas. Gain affects mostly the white or the bright areas. And gamma is for everything else in between. So if the skin tones are, say, a little bit green, we could nudge it towards red. So here's how we can adjust the colors. This, again, like I said, mostly affects the mid-range. Let me reset that. The shadows mostly affect the blacks or the darkest. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. You can make changes to the colors without affecting the exposure. All the telecine controls allow you to do this. For doing secondary color correction, I mentioned this is the vectors. This is where the vectors tool come in. I mean, say like you want to like brighten her face, you could do that by skin tones are primarily composed of red and yellow. But if we just wanted to brighten her face, we could easily we could do that with a shape, but we could also do that here in this really cool vectors tool. You can see I can darken or brighten her face. Of course I'm I want to make it look good. We can also increase the saturation. This is similar to the HSL tool in Photoshop. Great question. Okay, so I did. Any more questions, Eric, about the color wheels? Basically, these are the telecine controls that came out of the way they used to do color correction, and so color timers and colorists are familiar with these tools. But it basically, again, lift, gamma, gain, shadows, midtones, and highlights. If I want to like make it more blue, I push it towards blue. If I want to make it more yellow, I push it towards yellow. Okay, awesome, great question. Can you do this with the older ColorChecker also? We don't support the photo or the legacy chart. We may offer it in the future, but we're really trying to encourage people to get the video chart simply because, as I mentioned, if you use the auto match feature, there's enough grayscale steps, these steps right here, there's enough for us to accurately map the tonal range and to make the contrast and exposure controls. Also, if you're shooting with multiple cameras that have different color profiles, again, it's important to get this chart into your shots as part of your workflow to make shot matching a breeze. Okay, so no, the center point on the scope when you had the lines going out. Yeah, I mean, let me bring that up. Did I close the scopes? Let's see, no, that's go to meeting. Let's see, I'll use a keyboard shortcut. There we are. White is in the center. So you can see obviously there's a lot of white because there's a lot of white in the shot. But basically, we kind of want to just have this thing centered. The center is white. And then going out, you get towards the saturated colors. Or you get to like dark blue. So for instance, let me just do that real quick. Wow, so you see that? So I'm just going to do this. You can actually use the vector scope to white balance as well. I'm just trying to, adjust this until the white is as centered as possible. As much of this clumping is in the middle. What codecs can be used for good results? Well, if you're doing this in Final Cut, Apple ProRes is a great codec. If you're shooting on an HDSLR, chances are it's going to compress it into some kind of H.264 or AVC type codec with a lot of video compression, but Final Cut can handle that. Adobe Premiere, other softwares can handle that. It's a little bit more difficult to work with because you're dealing with a clip that's a little bit more compressed, so it requires a little bit more CPU power, so you can transcode it if you want. Okay. So with that being said, does anybody want me to show you how continue on this shot down here and just basically more or less kind of color correct this? Would anybody like to see that? I'm just going to wrap up that for the questions, but if you'd like me to stick around and you want to stick around and see more of that, I'm happy to show you that. So let me know if you want to see that done just on the shot. I don't have this is an edit, and I don't have the color checker as part of any of this, but nonetheless I can just show you how to color correct a scene. So let me know if you'd like to see that. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. Well, let me just zoom out of here a little bit, and I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can on this. This was shot on a Sony, and it has some kind of S-Log gamma on it. Actually, you know what? The fastest way to apply color finale to all these clips is to select all of them. I just used a bounding box. And then what I'm doing is I'm just going to double click on color finale over here in the effects section. And this is going to actually apply color finale to each one of those shots, which is awesome. Huge time saver. And then again, this is the first part. This is where we want to go through, do our base correction. I'm going to bring up a different scope. Get all the work done, match the shots, and then create a look. So I'll just use the RGB parade. You can see it's really elevated. So I'm going to use the telecine controls. In looking over in the scope, I'm just going to bring the shadows down until they're about near the bottom. And then with the gain control, which mostly affects the highlights, I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up. Not too worried about blowing it out in terms of information or detail going over 100 because I'm not too worried about losing information. And then the mid-range mostly affects the midtones, but you can see here, add a little bit of saturation in. Boom, that shot's already done. From 0 to hero. Awesome. Of course, as I did this also brought the shadow, so I'm just going to kind of bring those back down. It looks like they're a little imbalanced, so I'm just going to adjust those ever so slightly. Just kind of keeping my eye and using up, down, left, right motions as I do it. That actually kind of warmed it up quite a bit, so I'll just leave it as is. All right. So coming to this next shot, what we can actually do, if we did want to save some time, is we could use the keyboard shortcut Command C. Of course, I already did add this, but I'll just delete that. And then choose the option Edit Paste Effects. Boom. So I tried to save a little bit of time, but it didn't work because we have this really bright light, and that's obviously not going to work for us. So I'll just go ahead and fix that. Sorry, I'm going to try to move swiftly as I can. That's interesting. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to bring that back down. Bring the shadows down. And bring the mid-range up. So, I tried to take a shortcut, but you can see that my shortcut obviously didn't work. So I might as well just go through each one of these. Sometimes you get into a hurry and you kind of get lazy and you're just like, oh, I'll just copy and paste and then just go back and fix and stuff. But what ends up happening is you end up creating more work for you. So I'm just kind of balancing the exposure all out, just trying to make this look good. I'm just kind of putting everything where it should be. You're going to love these telepsync controls if you're not familiar, if you haven't used them before. They're really cool. Okay, so that shot's done. I'm just going to do these 4 shots here and just forget about the rest. This is a really nice shot. I think we'll be able to do some cool stuff with it. Maybe we'll make this our hero shot. Generally, you want to use a wide shot as your hero shot, but we could, of course, use this as well. All right, that looks good. Now I'm just going to, like I said, just delete these last few clips. And what I'm going to do is, what I have right now is I have what's called the scrub feature turned on, or skimming. And this basically allows me to, just with my mouse, just, I'm not even clicking or holding down. I'm just dragging the playhead over top of this. And I can kind of see these all together. So I'm looking at these. I'm just kind of doing some shot-to-shot matching. As I look back at this one and then to this one, it just seems like the saturation is off. It seems like I'm just eyeballing this. The blue of their overalls is more of a darker blue, and this shot also appears to be more yellow. These are just observations I'm making. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fix that. Maybe increase the exposure. For yellow, I'm just going to come over here to the gain control and kind of push this a little bit more towards kind of bluish. Let's see. Man, it still just seems like it has more contrast. It obviously has less contrast because there's kind of some glare coming on from the lens, but it still just kind of feels off. So maybe what I would do is add a curves, and here in the master curve, I'm just going to kind of punch up the contrast, kind of bring those down. This is like an S curve. You're probably very familiar with doing this with the curves. And they're overall still seem to be a little bit more purple. Again, the black's a little bit more crunchier, but I'm not going to worry about that because it's also a little bit warmer in the mid-range, so I'm going to try to cool that down as well in the mid-tones. Okay, so what I could do with the vectors tool is go to the blue and push them more towards blue and maybe darken them. There we go. See, I can either brighten their overalls or I can darken them. But now, if I scrub over top of it, it looks like we have a better, their skin tones just kind of look yellow. So I'll fix that with the vectors tool. Just coming over here to the yellow. It's going to lean them more towards red. Boom. Maybe increase the saturation. All right, now let's take a look. How are we doing for shot matching? In the chat box, let me know if you think I got it matched from what you can see. I don't know how quick this is in terms of real time showing you this, but let me know if you think it's matched. Question was, why use a wide shot as a hero shot? Generally, it's good to use a wide shot because it's a large overall representation of the scene. Okay, so everyone's saying it looks matched. Now these are two different individuals, but let's try to match it nonetheless. I'm just doing this by eye, but I can also, of course, look over here into the scopes, and I can compare things as well. So this shot just seems like it needs a little bit more contrast, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Add the curves and a master curve. Just trying to bring that down. Yeah. Yeah, that looks much better. And maybe just increase the saturation, maybe some more. Let's do these all look the same. Yeah, close enough. Okay. So we've gone through, we've done all the heavy lifting, we've done all the work, we've got a good base correction, and we've done the shot-to-shot matching. Now we can move on to creating a look. And provided that we've done all the work and these are already kind of matched by themselves, now if we add a look or like a filter effect on top of these, they're all still going to match. That's the magic of it. So let me show you that. I'm going to come over here into the titles section, and I'm going to grab this look grade that we actually provide with Color Finale. I'm going to drag this. This is like a pseudo adjustment layer. It's kind of a cheat or a hack inside Final Cut, but it allows us to add an adjustment layer. Now there's two things that we could do in terms of just kind of creating a look that kind of fits this. This is kind of like an industrial kind of thing. You know, again, we're kind of going for the look of the emotion. Maybe they're supposed to be happy because this is maybe like, I don't know, like a union or some kind of safety video. So maybe we want some poppy, you know, happy colors, or maybe we want to make it more bleak or whatever. Like they're toiling in these rough like conditions. But I'm just going to go ahead and select the look adjustment layer. Come back over here to the effects section. I'll double click to add color finale. We've added over here in the effects. And you know, I'll use this as our hero shot because you know, we can see all three of them. So I'm going to click open. But what we could do, you know, is we could either, you know, create a look on our own manually using these color tools, either using the color wheels or the curves, or we could even use what's called a lookup table. I don't want to like make your brain fry if you're not familiar with what a lookup table is, but don't overthink it. They're crazy or mystical or secret about them. All a lookup table is just a correction. That's really all it is. But let's just try that for the interest of time. What we introduced in our version 1.5 is this LUT gallery. So if I click this LUT gallery, it should, there we go. Come on, baby. Here we go. And I'm going to change this to my Ascend LUTs. These are some lookup tables I used to sell. But basically, what's nice about this is it allows us to preview these lookup tables, the effect that they're going to have before we adjust it. So it's just kind of the same as like, I don't know, like an action set or a Lightroom preset. That's how you can like think of it. So as I'm just kind of scrolling down through these, I might see one that I like. Let's see. Let's try this one. Yeah. All right. Look at that look. Isn't that awesome? If you guys think that's awesome, go ahead and say that's awesome. If you guys like that look, or should we try something different? Let me just toggle this on and off so you can see the difference it made. So this is without that lookup table, and here it is with it. Really desaturated some of the other colors, really kind of added some more grit. This is kind of almost like a bleach bypass Saving Private Ryan. And this is the point I want to emphasize. Again, look at this. Because I applied this as an adjustment layer and we did all of our work first, these all match. Whoa, that gets a little crazy right there. All of a sudden his face gets really saturated. So this is where you'd want to go back and kind of verify and be like, ugh, that doesn't work. We would come back and we'd lower the saturation. Yeah, that's just a little too much. All right, now let's take a look. It's kind of weird right there. It doesn't have a lot of saturation, then the camera gets closer. But that looks good, right like that. Okay, so everyone's saying it works, but let's try maybe something. Again, come back to our, you know, our hero shot. Turn on the LUT gallery again. Click at it. This is some really new stuff, groundbreaking stuff that we're actually doing inside of Final Cut. So it's pretty cool that we've been able to do it. Oh, I love this look. This is the summer look. It's just kind of a cool look. Look at that. Other than the margins, let me fix that. Kind of colored the letterboxing at the top and the bottom, so I'm just gonna address that. But I mean, look at that. Boom. It's kind of a little too warm. Doesn't quite work for this, but it's just kind of a cool look. Let me show you something else. I'm just gonna find one other look I think that looks good. Yes, remember I mentioned like the thriller look. This looks a little too strong. Woof, that's some strong color contrast. But this is what we can do. We can either do it right here or even over here. Well, actually, let me show you right inside the panel itself. If we determine that like a look or an element is too strong, or one of the things that we did with Color Finale, I love Photoshop, and I'm sure you do too. I really love the idea, the concept of layers. To me, it's just more intuitive than say like nodes, though nodes can be more powerful. I really enjoy just this layers. So what I can do if it's too strong is we have an opacity control, so we can dial this right to taste. So I think it looks better about right there at about 56%, right? Again, I could come in here and this is equally affecting all the clips. I can bring up the saturation if we want to kind of go for a happier look. Let's take a look at the vectors. Maybe we can do something cool with the blue. We can maybe I like the kind of the teal look that we have. Let me just bring up the vector scope so we can see that. I kind of like the teal look that we have, but I really like the overalls to be kind of more purplish bluish. And kind of what this is doing is I'm kind of expanding this. Let me show you that again. You'd almost think of this as a split complementary if you're familiar with color schemes. Here we have everything kind of teal, kind of clumped together, but I can actually make just the blue in their overalls kind of a little bit more of a cobalt blue, and we still kind of have that teal, of course, in the walls. And let me just turn that on and off so you can see the difference that made. So that's just an adjustment on the overalls. But now we kind of have more, we've kind of expanded that color contrast, and now we have more of a split complementary where our complementary color, our dominant color is, their skin tones, the yellow hats, and we've kind of split off the teal and the blue in their overalls. And I think that's a really lovely look. If you think that's really a lovely look, go ahead and let me know if you think that's a lovely look. I can adjust the overall mix. That's another cool thing over here in the effects is this is a control that we published. And if I grab this mix control, I can dial this all the way back till there's like nothing. We're not adding any effect to it, all right? But then if I adjust the mix here, I'll make sure I have that selected. I can bring that back. So that's without any of that look applied. We're just looking at our base correction, and here it is with that look applied. Beautiful. It's just such a beautiful thing. Oh, he's looking kind of yellow. So again, just kind of come back, and the vectors go to the yellow. I'm just going to try to sweeten his skin tones. We'll move him a little bit more towards red. There we go. What we have here in the vector scope is we have what's called the flesh line, and generally skin tones should kind of line up on that. So that's actually a really cool thing that we have in the video space that that we don't really have so much in the photography space. So basically skin tones we want to kind of line up evenly. It varies slightly to either to the left or the right of that line depending on ethnicity, but more or less we have the same color skin because we have more or less the same color of blood running underneath our veins, and basically our skin is just the dermal layers over top of our blood. So anyways, there you go. So I made yeah, that looks awesome. Okay, with that being said, like I said, I'll maybe take one or two more questions if I see any. Is it possible to use 3 or 4 monitors with Final Cut? Absolutely. If you have a graphics card, a powerful enough machine to support that many monitors, you can do that. So I know that Sandra, who organized this, is possibly listening in. I don't know if she wants to come in, but that's basically a wrap. It looks like she did answer a question here. Calibration is important. I use the X-Rite i1 Pro to calibrate my monitors. If your monitor is calibrated correctly for sRGB, for delivering for the web or X709, just look at your monitor as like a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So don't let all these different technical color spaces and this and that confuse you, because in the end, if it looks good here in the monitor and you have a calibrated display, then it's going to look good at your delivery. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys coming out. Glad that was helpful. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Derek, Glenn, Andrew, Moses, Eric, Annie. Thank you all for joining us. I wish you all the best. Hope this has been really helpful, and enjoy your day. All the best.
Denver, thank you
Oh,
so much. This is Sandra here.
yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to mention to everyone that within the next 24 hours, I will email a link to the recording of today's session so people can review it on their own time also. But great webinar, Denver. Amazing information. Thank you so very much.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you're
everyone.
welcome. Yeah, thank you so much. And sorry, thank you for reminding me. If you're interested in Color Finale, we do have a 7-day trial. If you don't already have it, I assume many of you already perhaps have Color Finale, but you can actually try it out free for 7 days. It's a fully functioning version. To do that, just go to try.colorgradingcentral.com/color finale. If that's too long of a URL to remember, just go to colorgradingcentral.com and look for it on the website.
Okay, thanks again, Denver. Thanks, everyone. See you the
Thank
next
you.
time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.